I died when a wardrobe I had assembled fell on me. In my second life, a wooden sword the Academy had snapped in half grew a new blade before dawn. 10 hours before that miracle, the same sword had made 312 students laugh at me. I stood in the center of Reincarnation Academy's Awakening Hall with a cracked pine board in my hands. Noble families watched from the balconies. Instructors sat beside the crystal that ranked every awakened student in public. My name was already at the bottom. Every candidate was supposed to receive mana oak worth 20 silver. My board was ordinary pine with 3 knots and a black split down the middle. I raised my hand. Master Mortis, this is not the material assigned to me. Mortis did not look up from his papers. He was the head of the Academy workshops. His red robe had 6 gold tools sewn across the chest. One of those tools probably cost more than my entire life. Every candidate received the correct material, he said. Jorvik laughed from the first row. A fresh mana oak spear rested across his knees. He had awakened the class of Silver Lancer 10 minutes earlier. His spear had reached rank C, and his name now occupied second place on the board. Beside his chair lay an empty wrapping marked with my examination number. I pointed at it. My number is on that wrapping. More than 100 heads turned. Jorvik covered the mark with his boot. Are you accusing me of theft? He asked. He did not sound angry. He sounded pleased. His family supplied metal weapons to Arcana. If I argued with him, I argued with half the people on the balcony. I am identifying my property, I said. The laughter became quieter. Jorvik had expected me to beg. Calm answers were less entertaining. Mortis finally raised his eyes. You have 7 minutes left, Candidate Relis. Use them or leave the circle. The Academy had chosen its side in public. In my old world, I had assembled cheap furniture. I was no master, but I knew how wood bent and where it split. Complaining would not turn pine into oak. I placed the board on the table. My mana reserve held 60 units. Jorvik had used more than 200 on his spear. Tavra, the best swordswoman in our year, had nearly 300. 60 was not impressive. It was enough to warm a bath if the bath was small and had low expectations. I sent 20 units into the pine. The wood softened under my fingers. I cut around the largest knot. I used the split as the center line instead of fighting it. I shaped a short training sword with a thick spine, a round guard, and a grip that fit my hand. The bell rang as I finished sanding the edge. For one breath, the hall stayed silent. The sword was simple, but it was straight. It balanced 2 fingers above the guard. Even Tavra leaned forward to look. Then the ranking crystal flashed gray. Object identified as a pine training sword, Mortis announced. Attack value 3, durability 5, rank F. The public board placed me at number 312. The laughter returned twice as loud. Someone offered me a copper coin for a spoon. A voice on the balcony said Arcana should stop giving scholarships to street children. Then the system spoke inside my head. It told me that my awakened class was Carpenter, not Battle Carpenter, not Arcane Builder, just Carpenter. Mortis struck my name from the scholarship list. Combat enrollment denied, he said. Workshop enrollment denied. Scholarship canceled. You may remain until sunset to collect your belongings. Sila stood near the archive students in the left aisle. She was the only elf in our year. Pale green light rested in her dark hair whenever she stood near Livingwood. At that moment, there was no light at all. She was not laughing. Jorvik rose and walked into the circle. The Academy should at least test whether his toy is safe, he said. A child might hurt a finger, Mortis smiled. A practical durability test is permitted. It was not permitted without the creator's approval. The rule was written on the wall behind him. Jorvik took my sword before I could answer. He held it between 2 fingers and showed it to the balconies. This is what happens when pity replaces talent. He struck it against the stone edge of the examination table. The sword broke through the center. One half hit the floor. The other remained in his hand. The crowd exploded with laughter. Jorvik bowed as if he had defeated a dragon. Mortis ordered an assistant to throw both pieces into the scrap cart. I picked them up first. Why bother? Jorvik asked. It is dead wood. I examined the break. The grain had separated cleanly along the black split. It completed the test you gave it, I said. That is more than I can say for the examiner. The front rows went silent. Someone on the upper balcony coughed to hide a laugh. Mortis's face darkened. Jorvik looked as if I had struck him with the broken half. I wrapped the pieces in cloth and left the circle before either man found a rule that allowed execution by paperwork. Sila caught me beside the public ranking board and returned a strip of bark from the sword. You thanked the wood before shaping it, she said. When Jorvik broke it, I heard a heartbeat. Her amber eyes held small green rings. She had not laughed with the others. A bronze notice appeared beside my name. I owed 3 gold by sunset the next day, or my enrollment would end. I had 4 copper coins. Sela offered her 12 silver, but I refused to make both of us poor. Mortis sent me to sort broken furniture in an old workshop behind the gardens. It had 1 cloudy window, a crooked door, and enough dust to grow potatoes. I worked until dark and recovered 3 small pieces of mana oak worth almost 5 silver. It was not enough to pay my debt, but it was a start. When darkness settled, I unwrapped the sword. The 2 broken pieces were warm. I placed them together. The split closed by the width of a hair. My remaining 40 units of mana vanished at once. Cold spread from my fingers to my shoulders. My knees struck the floor. Thin green threads crossed the broken grain. They twisted together like tiny roots. The pine drank my mana without spilling a single unit. The system spoke again. It said an impossible growth condition had been met. A crafted object had survived destruction while retaining the will to serve its owner. 3 hidden paths opened before my mind. The choices were Divine Carpenter, Creator of Living Weapons, and Keeper of the World Tree. 1 promised living buildings, 1 promised growing weapons, and 1 promised authority over ancient roots. I could choose only one. I chose Creator of Living Weapons. The broken sword moved. The halves pulled together with a soft wooden click. New rings spread through the blade. I crawled to the measuring stone beside the workbench and pressed the blade against it. Green light filled the old workshop. The stone spoke the results aloud. Attack value 18, durability 32, rank E. The black split had become a strong dark center line. A fresh green bud opened on the guard. The sword had started with 3 attack and 5 durability. 40 units of mana had multiplied both numbers. A weapon worth less than 1 silver coin was now worth at least 60. I waited for another skill. None came. My hidden class had 1 rule. Anything wooden that I created could remain alive. After real use or damage, it could consume mana and turn that experience into permanent growth. That was enough to break the oldest law of crafting. A finished object's rank was fixed forever. It could be repaired or enchanted, but it could never improve its own material. My sword had just done exactly that. Outside, someone dropped a bowl. I turned. Sela stood in the doorway with a covered bowl in her hands. Green light shone through every strand of her hair. I heard it from the archive, she whispered. The small bud on the guard opened toward her. Can you hear words? I asked. Not words. Hunger, relief. It remembers being broken. I looked at the measuring stone. It consumed 40 mana to heal. Sela came closer. She touched the flat of the blade with 2 fingers. The sword made a soft sound, like wind passing through leaves. It is alive, she said. Then it needs a name. Bud, that is not frightening. Neither are you. I died fighting furniture. I am terrifying in the correct room. She smiled again. Then she saw the bronze tuition notice on the wall. You can demand a second test, she said. Mortis allowed Jorvik to perform an illegal durability trial. Academy law gives you 12 hours to challenge the result. Will anyone care? Sela lifted the recording crystal she carried for archive work. They will when 300 people watch it. Brahm arrived with a black cooking pot. He was our broadest student and lowest-ranked defender. A childhood fever had damaged his mana channel so badly that he could not activate a metal shield. Thick onion stew steamed under the lid with soft potatoes, browned beef, and sweet carrots. Brahm toasted dark bread with butter and crushed garlic until the edges became crisp. Sela ate 1 bowl, I ate 2, and Brahm ate 3. For 10 quiet minutes, the old workshop felt like a home. What will you do? Brahm asked. Turn 4 copper into 3 gold by tomorrow. That sounds difficult. So did surviving a wardrobe. At dawn, the examination courtyard was full. Students leaned from windows. Kitchen workers lined the wall, and Dean Praxon watched from the balcony. Mortis arrived, looking as if someone had filled his bed with ants. A retest is unnecessary, he said. Sela raised her recording crystal. His voice from the previous day played across the courtyard. A practical durability test is permitted. Then the rule carved above the hall door appeared in blue light. Any object destroyed during an unauthorized test could be presented again within 12 hours. The crowd read it together. Mortis could not refuse without admitting what he had done. Jorvik walked into the courtyard carrying an Academy steel saber. He had left his rank C spear behind because awakened weapons were forbidden in a basic retest. The saber had attack value 14 and durability 26. It was rank E. He stared at Bud. You painted the pieces together. I handed the sword to the measuring crystal. It announced 18 attack and 32 durability. The courtyard became silent. Then everyone spoke at once. Students pushed toward the circle. 3 instructors checked the crystal for damage. A kitchen worker shouted that he had seen the sword break. My name vanished from the bottom of the public board and reappeared at number 180. Jorvik's face lost its color. Mortis ordered a second measurement. The numbers did not change. A hidden enchantment, he said. Then, let the durability test continue. I replied. Jorvek gripped the steel saber with both hands and swung. Steel struck wood. The sound crossed the courtyard like a hammer blow. Bud remained whole. He struck again. The fifth blow marked the guard, and I felt Bud record the damage. The crowd counted aloud. On the sixth, I changed the angle of my block. The steel saber slid down Bud's dark center line. Its edge struck the round wooden guard. A crack ran across the metal. Half the saber spun into the air. Jorvek watched it land beside Mortis. Nobody laughed at first. The result was too strange. Then Brahm shouted, "The chair won." The courtyard shook with noise. Jorvek stepped backward, caught his heel on the practice rail, and fell into a barrel of sawdust. He emerged white from head to foot. Only his angry eyes remained visible. He looked like a flour bag that had learned hatred. Even several nobles on the balcony laughed. The crystal confirmed that Bud still had 29 durability. The steel saber had reached 0. Dean Praxon raised one hand, and the courtyard slowly quieted. "Relis passes the practical examination," he announced. "His workshop enrollment is restored provisionally. The Academy will pay 30 silver coins for the destroyed test weapon and provide 3 pieces of mana oak for continued study." My status changed in front of every witness. Yesterday I had been the final name on the board. Now I was the only first-year student listed as an experimental craftsman. Mortis had to place the coin pouch in my hand himself. "Enjoy your trick while it lasts," he whispered. "I intend to measure how long it lasts," I said. "That is what craftsmen do." His jaw tightened. By noon, copies of Bud's measurements covered the notice boards. 47 people visited the workshop, but I accepted no orders. I had 1 living weapon, 25 silver after buying food, and a debt of 3 gold. I needed facts before customers. Sila, Brahm, and I ate at the workbench after the crowd left. Brahm had bought mushroom stew with cream, black pepper, and small pieces of roasted chicken. The bread was still hot. Butter melted into the center when I tore it open. Sila brought baked apples filled with honey and crushed nuts. Bud rested beside my bowl. Its new leaf turned whenever Sila spoke. "It likes you." Brahma said. "It likes anyone who does not hit it against a table," she replied. Outside, students continued repeating the numbers. 3 attack had become 18. 5 durability had become 32. My 30 silver coins sounded like a fortune each time the story grew. For the first time since entering Arcana, people knew my name for something other than being poor. Then, the floor moved. The bowls jumped. A crack opened between the stones. Thick roots pressed against the gap from below, each one glowing with the same green light as Bud. Sila dropped her spoon. Her face became completely still. "What did you hear?" I asked. She placed her palm on the floor. "The roots struck once beneath us, like an enormous heart. Avarun took 40 breaths to heal your sword," she said. "When you take 1,000, the world tree will wake." I wrote 2 numbers on the wall with charcoal. 1,000 breaths before Avarun woke. 40 breaths already spent. That left 960. It sounded generous until I remembered that a single rank E-sword had used 40. A set of weapons could empty the reserve faster than Brahm emptied a soup pot. "Can we return the breaths?" I asked. Sela kept her hand on the root. "I do not know. The elves stopped hearing Avarun more than a century ago. I thought the voice was gone." "Why is the tree under an academy?" "The academy was built over the tree. Humans simply changed the order when they wrote the history books." That answer sounded like something humans would do. I added a 3rd number to the wall, 3 gold coins due by sunset. The world tree was a disaster for later. Tuition was a disaster with a deadline. Tavra entered the workshop without knocking. She wore a plain black training coat, and her long dark hair was tied behind her head. A wooden practice blade hung at her side. The best swordswoman in our year could cut 6 falling leaves before the first touched the ground. She was also captain of Braska, the lowest ranked team in Arcana. She looked at the roots, Bud, and our unfinished meal. "Should I ask?" she said. "Not if you want a short morning." She placed a bronze trial token on the table. "The forest ranking test begins in 2 hours. First prize for a rare beast is 4 gold. Braska needs a 3rd member." Brahm nearly swallowed his spoon. "You want Relis?" "I want his sword. Relis is attached to it." There was no romance in the way Tavra looked at me. She was judging whether I could survive being carried through a forest. I appreciated the honesty. Braska occupied number 32 out of 32 teams. Tavra could defeat most students alone, but the tournament used balanced squads. The noble teams had healers, mages, and enchanted armor. Braska had 1 swordswoman, 1 defender whose mana channels barely worked, and now a carpenter with 60 mana. We sounded less like a team and more like items left after a market closed. "Why did the other teams refuse you?" I asked Tavra. "They did not. Jorvek offered me a place. He wanted me to sign a contract, giving his family half my future prize money. I broke the pen." "That explains why I like you," Brahm said. Tavra ignored him. "Can Bud cut an ironback boar?" "Its attack is 18. An ironback hide has defense near 25. Not yet." then make it stronger. It grows only through real use. Good, I know how to provide that. I had 3 pieces of mana oak, 25 silver coins, and less than 2 hours. A second sword would not solve our largest weakness. Braum could stand in front of an attack, but his academy shield required 30 mana just to activate. His damage channels released no more than 8 at once. I selected the widest oak piece. It was only large enough for a round shield with a radius shorter than my forearm. I steamed the wood over the cooking pot, bent 2 layers across the grain, and joined them with 6 recovered nails. I shaped a handle that spread impact across Braum's wrist. 12 units of my mana sealed the fibers. The measuring stone announced defense 8 and durability 12. Rank F. Braum held it up. The shield barely covered his chest. I look like I stole a dinner plate, he said. A strong dinner plate. A bowl would be safer. Tavra drew her practice sword. May I? Braum's confidence left his face. The first strike pushed him across the floor. The second opened a pale mark in the oak. Tavra moved around him, changing angles. Braum adjusted his feet and learned to meet each blow with the curve instead of the edge. After the 20th strike, the shield became warm. It took 30 units from Braum. His damaged channels did not resist. The wood drank slowly through his palm, drawing mana that he could never release into metal equipment. New grain crossed the pale marks. The shield widened by the length of 2 fingers. The measuring stone spoke again. Defense 16, durability 28, rank E. Braum stared at his hand. That is twice the defense, he said. For 30 mana, I replied. You have 60 left. If it tries to take more than 40 during the trial, let go. Will that stop it? I looked at Bud. We are about to find out. Scylla touched the new shield. The green rings in her eyes brightened. Ava Rune lost 30 more breaths, she said. I changed the number on the wall from 40 to 70. Owner Mana powered the growth and opened a path into Avarune's roots. During those first changes, every unit drew 1 breath of living force. The owner paid in exhaustion. The tree paid in sleep. 1 cheat, 2 victims. The forest trial took place beyond the north wall. 32 teams entered through separate gates. Recording crystals floated above the trees, sending every fight to the academy courtyard. Nearly 1,000 students and visitors watched the large projection screens. The ranking board updated after every kill, rescue, and collected core. Braska's name sat at the bottom with 0 points. Jorvik's team held 4th place before the trial even began. Their equipment rating gave them 80 starting points. His rank C spear alone was worth more than everything we owned. At the gate, an examiner measured our equipment. Bud still had attack 18 and durability 29. Braum's shield had defense 16 and durability 28. Tavra carried Bud. I carried a hammer, a coil of rope, and 2 mana oak stakes. The examiner looked at my tools. Are you planning to build a house? Only if the monsters need one. The gate opened. For the first hour, we hunted small beasts. Tavra killed 3 needle rabbits and 1 moss fox. Each victory gave Bud a little experience, but the sword took no mana. The fights were too easy. Growth required real stress, not repeated slaughter. Braum blocked a charging tusk rat. His shield gained 1 point of durability after consuming 5 mana. The public board gave us 12 points and moved Braska to number 29. The spectators cheered as if a chair had started walking. We followed broken brush toward the river. Tavra stopped at a patch of black mud. Ironback tracks, she said. Large one. A common ironback was rank D and worth 50 points. A mature one could reach rank C and earn the rare beast prize. Its backplates were harder than steel. Its belly was softer, but reaching it required standing in front of 600 pounds of anger. I found a strip of red cloth tied to a tree. Jorvik's team used red markers. They passed here, Braum said. No, Tavra replied. They drove something here. The forest erupted behind us. An ironback boar smashed through 2 young trees. Black plates covered its spine. 1 tusk was longer than my arm. A burning red lure hung from its neck. Jorvik stood on the ridge beyond it with his spear raised. He smiled and cut the lure loose. The recording crystal above us turned away at the same moment. A terrible accident, Jorvik called. Try not to become furniture. The boar charged. Braum stepped forward. The small shield looked even smaller. The impact lifted him from the ground. He flew backward, struck a tree, and remained standing only because the shield grew around his arm. It took 40 mana at once. Oak spread past his elbow. The round edge unfolded downward and outward. New layers crossed the grain. What had looked like a dinner plate became a tower shield tall enough to cover his entire body. The measuring crystal floating above us snapped back toward the burst of mana. Its voice carried to every screen in the academy. Defense 47, durability 120, rank D. The courtyard noise reached us through the crystal. Nearly 1,000 witnesses shouted at once. Braum had 11 mana left. His face was gray. The shield had used exactly the limit I gave him, but the next impact could empty him. Let go, I ordered. The boar did not agree. Its tusk had caught under the new rim. Braum could not release the handle without being thrown. Tavra ran along the shield. She used its sloping face like a ramp. At the top, she jumped over the boar's head and struck the narrow gap behind its front plate. Bud cut 1 inch into the hide and stopped. The boar twisted. Tavra lost her grip. The blade bent nearly in half before coming free. Bud pulled 50 units from Tavra. Dark grain flowed from the center line to the edge. The green bud on the guard split into 3 leaves. The blade lengthened by the width of my hand. The crystal announced attack 31 and durability 64, rank D. The crowd became louder. Tavra landed, turned, and cut the same gap again. This time, Bud passed through the plate. The boar collapsed 3 steps from me. Its tusk carved a trench through the mud. Brom fell on top of his shield and did not move. For 1 terrible second, I thought the wood had killed him by taking too much. Then he lifted his head. Did the dinner plate win? The trial crystal awarded Braska 100 points for a rank C rare beast. 12 more came from the smaller animals. Our name jumped from number 29 to number 16. The public projection repeated the shield's evolution from 3 angles. Then a second crystal descended through the trees. It had been following Jorvik. His team had turned 1 camera away, but they had not seen the other. The academy courtyard watched him tie the burning lure to the boar. They heard every word he said from the ridge. Jorvik's smile disappeared. The board removed 80 points for deliberate interference. His team fell from 4th place to 12th. The spectators began chanting Braska's name. Jorvik pointed his spear at the crystal and shattered it. That cost him another 20 points. We should leave, one of his teammates said. The forest answered with a second roar. The dead boar had not been alone. Its mate charged from the ridge, smaller but faster. Jorvik turned too late. His spear entered the animal's shoulder and stuck between 2 plates. The boar carried him downhill. Tavra looked at me. He tried to kill us. Yes, you are going to save him. There are still cameras, Brom groaned, planted his tower shield in the mud and braced it with both feet. I wrapped my rope around the new oak ribs. Tavra cut a branch above the path. We had less than 5 seconds. The boar struck the shield. Brom's remaining mana fell to 1. The shield did not grow. It held. Jorvik flew over the top and landed face first in the river shallows. Tavra dropped the branch across the boar's hind legs. Bud opened the damaged shoulder, and the beast fell beside its mate. The crystal awarded us another 40 points for the rescue, and 30 for the kill. Braska rose to number 11 for 3 breaths, then settled at number 16 as stronger teams finished their hunts. Jorvik crawled from the river. Green weeds hung from his hair. Mud covered his expensive white coat. He looked at the floating crystal, the dead beasts, and the shield that had saved his life. I did not need your help, he said. The projection carried his voice to the courtyard. The laughter was so loud that birds left the trees. I removed the red lure from the dead boar and placed it in his hand. Then you can explain this without us. He had no answer. At sunset, the trial judges confirmed our results in the main courtyard. Every team stood beneath a public board. Braska had started at number 32 and finished at number 16. Tavra received the rare beast medal. Brom's shield was displayed under guard because hundreds of students wanted to touch it. I received 4 gold coins. I crossed the same courtyard where everyone had laughed at my class and placed 3 of those coins on the tuition desk. The bronze debt notice beside my name vanished. My individual ranking rose from number 180 to number 73 because 2 rank D objects carried my maker's mark. I had 1 gold and 25 silver left. We also kept 2 iron back cores, 6 back plates, both tusks, and enough hide to trade for 20 mana oak boards. Power, resources, and reputation had all moved in the correct direction. Jorvik stood beneath the disciplinary board while an examiner read his penalty aloud. His team lost its equipment bonus for the next round. His family would receive the recording. He watched students gather around Brom's wooden shield instead of his silver spear. For him, that was worse than the mud. We returned to the workshop after dark. Brom insisted on cooking, despite having 1 mana and a purple bruise across his chest. He covered river fish with salt, lemon, and wild herbs, then fried them until the skin became crisp. Potatoes roasted beside the stove with garlic and butter. Tavra ate in silence for 5 minutes before taking a second piece of fish. That was the closest she came to giving a speech. Scylla sat beside me on the floor. Our shoulders touched whenever she reached for the bread. Each time, the leaves on Bud's guard turned toward her. 160, she whispered. I looked at the charcoal count on the wall. 40 from Bud's first healing, 30 from the shield's practice, 40 from its evolution, 50 from Bud. Avaroon had 840 breaths left. Tomorrow I will study before I build anything, I said. The tower shield leaned against the far wall. Its lower edge split open. Roots entered the stone floor without making a sound. They spread beneath our feet in a perfect circle. Bud answered with a rustle of leaves. Scylla went pale. The shield learned to protect a place, she said. It thinks this workshop is part of its owner. Heavy boots stopped outside. The door opened. Mortis stood there with 12 workshop guards and a red confiscation seal. He looked at the living shield, then at me. By authority of Sindral, he said, every object you created now belongs to the Academy. I read the confiscation seal before answering. The order claimed that Bud and the shield had been made with Academy materials, Academy tools, and Academy training. Under Sindral law, that gave Arkina a controlling share. The argument was not completely false. The first pine board had come from the examination hall. The mana yoke had been my retest reward. I had used a workbench owned by the Academy. The order simply ignored the 120 units of mana taken from Tavra and Braum, the ironback material we had won, and the fact that both objects had changed rank after leaving the workshop. Who valued the controlling share? I asked. Mortis lifted his chin. I did. Who signed the order? I did. Who receives the objects? My office will secure them. That is a very efficient legal system. Two guards looked away to hide smiles. Mortis pointed at Bud. Hand it over. Tavra rested one hand on the grip. Braum stood beside the shield. Its roots thickened under the floor. If the guards tried to take the weapons, the workshop would become a battlefield. We might win the first minute. We would lose our enrollment, our freedom, and probably the building. I tapped a smaller line at the bottom of the seal. Sindral property claims require an independent appraisal when ownership is disputed. Mortis's eyes narrowed. You cannot afford an appraiser. Then the Academy can keep the weapons after the claim fails. Scylla raised her recording crystal. Everyone heard that offer. The guards heard it too. Mortis could seize the weapons immediately, but doing so after refusing appraisal would look like theft. Rumors about the forest trial were already spreading beyond Arcana. Tomorrow morning, he said, the Central Craft Hall. If your toys fail one safety test, I will destroy them. Publicly? Publicly. He pressed the red seal onto our door and left 2 guards outside. The other 10 followed him into the night. Braum looked down at the roots around his boots. Could the shield have eaten them? Probably, I said. I am starting to love this shield. That feeling may be mutual. Try not to encourage it. By breakfast, 43 order requests covered the workshop wall. A noble offered 20 gold for a living bow. A merchant offered 50 for exclusive sales rights. Someone offered 2 chickens and a lucky stone for a spoon that fed its owner. I rejected that one first. A living spoon sounded like a future crime. Braum cooked oat porridge and milk while we waited for the hearing. He added honey, dried berries, and toasted nuts. The top became thick and golden near the stove. Scylla cut fresh pears into our bowls. Tavra ate standing beside the window, watching the guards. Mortis will choose the test, she said. He will choose one he expects us to fail. Can the shield reach rank C? Yes. Scylla stopped cutting a pear. How many breaths? I do not know. That is the dangerous part. She set the knife down. Then say no. Let him take the objects. Braum stared at his porridge. Tavra said nothing. I understood Scylla's fear. She was the only person who heard Averin clearly. Every new leaf on Bud sounded to her like a lock opening beneath the Academy. If Mortis takes them, he will test them without us, I said. Then he will make more. He sees a product, not a life. And what do you see? I looked at the shield. It had protected Braum before it protected itself. A responsibility. The green rings in her eyes softened. That was the correct answer, she said. Was there a wrong one? Several. One involved me hitting you with the pear. At the Central Craft Hall, 500 students packed the seats. Another 3,000 watched through projection crystals in classrooms and courtyards. The 43 order requests had become 106 before we reached the entrance. Dean Praxon sat above the test floor. Mortis stood beside a metal training golem twice Braum's height. Its iron arms were thicker than my waist. A red core glowed behind the chest plate. An unfamiliar young woman waited at the appraisal table. She wore a gray craftsman's coat without jewelry. A silver measuring chain circled each wrist. When Mortis introduced her, the crowd became quiet. Kezra represents the independent master families of Orveth, he said. Her family has appraised Imperial weapons for 4 generations. Kezra looked younger than some senior students. Her expression did not change when people whispered her name. I am here because Master Mortis reported a false rank increase, she said. If the report is true, I will expose the fraud. If it is false, I will expose the examiner. Mortis stopped smiling. I placed Bud and the shield on the table. Kezra measured their mana patterns, grain direction, weight, and age. She shaved a thread of wood from the shield, burned it over blue flame, and collected the ash on a white plate. Mana oak, she said. The material is 4 years old. The outer growth rings formed less than 1 day ago. She examined bud. Ordinary pine. The original material held no enchantment. 3 new rings formed after the object was completed. The crowd began to murmur. Mortis stepped closer. A temporary growth spell can produce false rings. Kezra gave him the burned ash. Then find the spell residue. He could not. She placed both objects against the main crystal. Bud measured attack 31 and durability 58. The shield measured defense 47 and durability 83 after the forest impacts. Both remained rank D. The numbers matched the trial record, Kezra announced. 106 order requests became 162. Mortis pointed at the iron golem. A useful weapon must survive a standard safety test. The shield will receive 3 controlled blows from a rank C training unit. If it changes shape, loses control, or harms an observer, the entire class will be declared unstable. Who inspected the golem? I asked. I did. Another efficient system? This time half the front row laughed. Mortis needed our weapons to fail for more than pride. Arcana had ordered 200 metal practice weapons from Syndril. Each cost 15 gold. The contract funded 41 workshop salaries and gave Mortis control of every repair order. If a carpenter could grow rank C weapons from discarded wood, the 3,000 gold agreement became difficult to defend. His position, his workers, and his influence all depended on fixed ranks. That made him dangerous. It also made him predictable. Braum entered the test circle with his shield. His mana had recovered to 90. I carved a release notch into the handle. If your reserve falls below 10, press here, I said. The grip will split. You are breaking my shield before the test? I am giving you a door. Doors have not treated you well. He had a point. The first golem strike landed in the center. The shield lost 14 durability. Braum moved back 1 step. The second strike came from above. The oak surface cracked near the rim. Braum's reserve fell by 20 as the damage closed. The shield gained 23 durability and 9 defense. The public crystal announced every change. 500 people leaned forward together. Mortis's hand tightened around the control rod. The third strike should have matched the first 2. Instead, the golem's core changed from red to white. Its attack rose from 70 to 112. Kezra turned toward Mortis. That is not a standard setting. The control is stuck, he said. He pulled the emergency lever. Nothing happened. The golem struck Braum hard enough to break the stone under his feet. The shield split down the center. It consumed 60 units of mana. Braum dropped to 10. The release notch opened, but he did not let go. Behind him sat 5 rows of students who had pushed too close to the test floor. The 2 halves of the shield spread sideways. Roots entered the stone. Oak panels grew from them, one after another, until a curved wall 6 yards wide stood between the golem and the seats. Thick ribs locked across the back. Green leaves opened along the top. The appraisal crystal rang like a bell. Defense 190, durability 410, rank C, new form identified as Bastion. The hall became completely silent. Then the golem hit the wall. Its iron fist cracked. The broken hand flew over the test circle and struck the rack behind Mortis. 20 metal helmets fell over him. One landed on his head backward. He staggered between the racks with both arms raised while the crowd screamed with laughter. The golem turned toward the appraisal table. Its white core had overloaded. Steam burst from its joints. The safety runes were gone. Kezra stood directly in its path. Tavra drew Bud. She crossed the floor before Mortis removed the helmet from his face. Bud struck the golem's knee and bent. The iron joint held. Tavra changed direction and used the curved blade to pull herself onto its arm. Bud took 70 mana from her. The 3 leaves on its guard became 7. Pale, wooden ridges formed along the spine. Its edge darkened until it looked like polished stone. The crystal announced attack 52 and durability 104. Rank C. Tavra cut again. The knee joint opened. The golem fell against Bastion. Its remaining fist struck the wall, but the roots held. Tavra ran across its back and drove Bud through the white core. The metal body stopped 1 foot from Kezra. 48 observers stood behind the living wall. Not one was hurt. For several seconds, the only sound came from leaves moving along Bastion's top. Then, Kezra walked to the main crystal. The golem exceeded the declared attack by 42, she said. The shield changed form to protect the audience. The sword increased its rank under verified combat stress. Both results are genuine. She turned to Mortis, who still held the backward helmet. The examiner failed. 500 witnesses rose to their feet. The public board changed while they watched. My experimental craftsman status became provisional living weapon license holder. My craft ranking entered at number 7 among all academy students, including seniors. The number of order requests passed 200. Praxon struck the table with his staff. The confiscation claim is denied. Materials contributed less than 1/10 of the present appraised value. Ownership remains with Relis and the registered wielders. Mortis pulled the helmet off. Dean, the Syndral contract requires us to control unlicensed alternatives. He is now licensed. The laughter returned. Mortis had wanted to destroy 2 rank D objects. Instead, he had given us a public rank C demonstration, a license, and 3,000 viewers. Kezra calculated the values aloud. Bud was worth 180 gold. Bastion was worth 300. Yesterday, both had been made from wood worth less than 1 gold in total. I will pay 80 gold for research access, she said. I will also provide 12 heartwood boards and 3 clean monster cores. The hall reacted more loudly to the price than it had to the golem. I studied her face. You are not buying the weapons. No. I am buying permission to observe your methods and test one future object. There will be safety limits. Good. I dislike dying during research. It ruins the notes. She placed an 80 gold bank seal on the table, then bowed to me in front of the entire hall. I also request instruction. The noise stopped again. An heir of the Orveth master families had asked a first-year rank F carpenter to teach her. Mortis looked as if the helmet had returned by itself. You can begin by cleaning the workshop, I said. Kezra nodded. Reasonable. The crowd laughed, but she did not. She arrived 1 hour later with brushes, measuring tools, and the 12 promised heartwood boards. By evening, I had 81 gold and 25 silver. My material stock had risen from 3 scraps to 12 heartwood boards, 2 iron-back cores, 3 clean cores, 6 plates, 2 tusks, and a roll of hide. Braska's equipment now held 2 verified rank C forms. People waited outside the workshop just to see the leaves on Bastion. Copies of Kesra's appraisal reached the merchant district. The first offer for exclusive rights rose from 50 gold to 500. I refused every production order. Scylla noticed. You could be rich by winter, she said. I could wake Averin by next week. We ate after the final visitor left. Brahm made noodles in a dark beef broth with ginger, green onions, and thin slices of roasted meat. Kezra had brought small pepper cakes from the capital. They were sweet for 1 second and painfully hot for the next 10. Tavra ate 4 without changing expression. Brahm ate 1 and drank an entire pitcher of water. Scylla sat close enough that her sleeve rested against mine. 310 breaths, she said quietly. The new growth had taken 150 that day. Avarun had 690 left. We learned more from those breaths than from the first 160, I said. That sounds like a craftsman's excuse. It is. Was it a good excuse? No. She placed half of her last pepper cake on my plate on... That was the correct answer, too. After midnight, Bastion's roots opened a hole beneath the workbench. A man climbed out of it. He was thin, bent, and covered in gray bark from his neck to his feet. White roots grew through his beard. Tavra reached for Bud, but Scylla raised one hand. Ulmor, she whispered. The keeper of the underground roots looked at every living weapon in the room. His wooden eyes stopped on my maker's mark. So you are the one spending the final breaths, he said. Final? There are 690 left. Ulmor laughed without humor. Avaran once held more than 10 million. Syndral stole the heart and drained the rest over 20 years. Your little weapons are consuming only the final 1,000 breaths that keep the world tree asleep. The roots beneath us struck once. Dust fell from the ceiling. When the last breath is gone, Ulmor said, Avaran will wake among thieves. It will not know that you arrived last. Ulmor drew a map in spilled flour. Avarun's buried trunk filled a chamber larger than the stadium, while its crown slept beyond the stone. Syndral had removed the heart connecting them 20 years earlier and used its living force to stabilize metal weapons. Even the Academy contract was feeding on Avarun. Why did you allow it? Tavra asked. Ulmor looked at the roots growing through his own arms. I fought. They burned my people, sealed the chamber, and called us monsters. I can move through the oldest roots, but I cannot cross iron marked by the heart. Can the breaths be restored? I asked. Only if the heart returns. Where is it? In Orveth, around the neck of the person who controls Syndral's weapons. I looked at my numbers. Avarun had 690 breaths. Braska entered the Academy tournament in 6 hours. Winning would protect my provisional license. Withdrawing would let Mortis classify the living weapons as unfinished hazards and revive his confiscation claim. We enter the tournament, I said, but we set a hard limit. No more than 450 breaths today. Scylla stared at me. That leaves 240. It also puts us in the final. If Syndral is watching, its leader will come to us. And if the weapons take more than your limit, then we release them. Brahm looked at Bastion. Its leaves turned toward him. It may not enjoy that plan, he said. Neither do I. Before sunrise, I carved 3 controls into each grip. They limited mana, released the owner, or broke the maker's mark. The final choice would return Bud and Bastion to ordinary wood and erase everything they had learned. Scylla watched me cut the final line. You would really destroy them? If the choice is 2 weapons or every person above Avarun, yes. They trust you. That is why the choice belongs to me. She covered my hand with hers. Her fingers were warm despite the cold workshop. This is why I stayed when everyone laughed, she said. Because I make unpleasant decisions? Because you make them before asking someone weaker to pay. For several breaths, neither of us moved. Then Brahm placed a breakfast pan between us. I brought eggs, he said. I can return later if the eggs are interrupting history. Scylla removed her hand. The green light in her hair became very bright. The eggs are burning, she said. Brahm looked down. History is expensive. We ate thick omelets filled with cheese, onions, and smoked sausage, with roasted tomatoes and warm, buttered rolls. Ulmor ate 6 rolls. Kezra took notes until he asked whether she wanted to examine his stomach too. By the time we reached the stadium, 6,000 spectators filled the seats, and more than 40,000 watched through public crystals. Merchants sold useless wooden copies of Bud for 2 silver each. My order board held 612 requests. Braska remained listed at number 16. We needed 3 victories to reach the final. Mortis waited at equipment registration. He had not lost his position after the appraisal. Praxen had opened an investigation, but Sindril protected its contract manager. Mortis wore the same red robe. The gold tools on his chest shone under the stadium lamps. New safety rule, he said. All evolving equipment must pass through a mana stabilizer. The device resembled a metal doorway filled with red light. Sindril seals covered both sides. Kezra examined the seals. This rule was issued less than 1 hour ago. Then you have read it quickly, Mortis replied. Refusing meant disqualification. We sent Bastion and Bud through. The red light dimmed their leaves. I felt no growth and heard no system warning. The device had not fed the weapons. It had removed mana already stored in their owner's marks. Tavra lost 100 units. Brahm lost 80. Both withdrawals hid beneath the stabilizer seal. Your equipment is safe, Mortis said. Brahm swayed when he lifted Bastion. Tavra's eyes became cold. He drained us? I know. The match bell rang before we could prove it. Our first opponents held number 8. Their team used an ice mage, a spear fighter, and a healer. Each wore rank C armor. The betting board gave Braska odds of 9-1. The ice mage covered half the arena with frost. Brahm opened Bastion, but its leaves curled in the cold. Tavra slipped, and the spear fighter drove her back. I carried no awakened weapon. I had 3 mana oak stakes, a hammer, and 38 mana after carving the controls. I drove the first stake into a crack in the arena floor. I tied our rope to it, then ran the line through Bastion's ribs. Brahm pulled. The shield became a wooden anchor. Tavra wrapped the other end around her waist and used the tension to move across the ice. The audience laughed when they understood. The spear fighter charged Brahm. Bastion absorbed the impact without growing. We had agreed to spend breaths only under lethal stress. Tavra swung around the anchor line, passed behind the spear, and struck the healer's staff. Bud cut it in half. The ice mage launched a second wave. Frost covered Bud from point to guard. The blade lost 12 durability. Tavra's reserve was still high enough to feed it, but the control held. She pressed the first mark with her thumb and allowed 40 units through. Bud's pale ridges thickened into dry bark. Air pockets opened beneath them. The frost stopped reaching the living grain. Its attack rose from 52 to 61. Its durability rose from 104 to 130. It remained rank C, but it had learned to resist cold. Sayla's voice reached me from the front seats. 650 breaths remain. The crowd heard the appraisal numbers and saw a wooden sword adapt to ice in less than 1 minute. Tavra cut through the mage's focus. Brahm caught the spear fighter between 2 unfolding shield panels. The healer raised both hands. Braska won in 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Our team ranking moved from number 16 to number 8. The tournament paid 50 gold for the first victory. My craft position rose from 7th to 4th when 3 senior artisans withdrew their challenges. The 612 requests became 900 before we left the arena. Between matches, Brahm opened the food basket he had hidden inside Bastion. You stored lunch in a living shield? Kezra asked. It protects important things. He had filled warm flatbread with roasted chicken, sliced cucumber, soft white cheese, and a green herb sauce. The bread had soaked up the meat juices without becoming soft. He also packed small honey buns with crisp sugar on top. Tavra ate, while Kezra checked her mana. You have 140 left, Kezra said. Brahm has 10. He should withdraw. Scylla said. Brahm held up a honey bun. I feel better. Food does not restore mana, Tavra said. Then why does it exist? I examined the maker's marks. Thin red lines ran from both weapons toward the registration gate. The stabilizer was still drawing traces of mana. Kezra followed them with her silver chain. The stolen power is going somewhere below the official's platform, she said. Find the receiver, I told her. Do not confront Mortis until the public crystal can see it. Our quarterfinal opponent held number 3. 3 elemental fighters entered with fire, wind, and stone armor. Without mana, Braum could not open Bastion fully. We changed our formation. Tavra stood behind the closed shield. I braced the roots with my remaining 2 stakes. Braum used only his body and the shield's existing strength. The stone fighter hit first. Bastion slid 20 feet but held. Fire followed. The outer leaves burned. Wind drove the flame across the oak panels. The audience rose as one wall of fire hid our entire team. I felt Bastion reach for Braum's empty reserve. The release control opened. The shield did not take his final 10 mana. Instead, it closed its green leaves, sacrificing them before the bark. Tavra used the smoke as cover. She stepped from behind the narrow edge and struck the firefighter's wrist. Bud's new dry bark charred but did not ignite. The fire focus fell. Braum turned Bastion flat. The wind fighter's next spell lifted it like a sail. All 3 of us crossed the arena in one violent jump. We landed behind the stone fighter. It was not a graceful plan. I hit the ground like a dropped toolbox. Braum landed on top of me. Tavra landed on her feet because the world had favorites. Bud struck the gap in the stone armor. Bastion trapped the wind fighter against the boundary. The firefighter tried to recover his focus, but I sat on it. Braska won by ring removal. For 5 seconds, 6,000 people stared at us. Then, someone in the upper seats shouted, "The shield can fly." It could not. The Wind Mage had thrown it. That detail disappeared from the story before we reached the recovery room. Braska moved from number 8 to number 4. The quarterfinal paid another 100 gold. I now held 231 gold and 25 silver in total, including Kesra's research payment and the first prize. Our resources included access to the tournament mana bank for the semifinal. The mana bank refused to open. Mortis stood beside the control pillar. Technical failure. Our semifinal opponent entered the arena. Jorvek walked at the front. His team had recovered from the forest penalty and climbed to number 2. He carried his rank C silver spear, now fitted with a Syndral flame core. 2 armored students followed him. Their combined equipment value exceeded 1,000 gold. The stadium reacted before the bell. Half the seats shouted Jorvek's name. The other half shouted Braska. Every projection crystal turned toward us. Jorvek stopped close enough that only I could hear him. Mortis promised my family the next academy contract if I destroy the weapons, he said. If I lose, 300 workers may lose their orders. For the first time, he did not sound pleased. Then fight for them, I said. But do not pretend you are fighting for the academy. The bell rang. His spear released a line of white fire. Bastion opened on instinct. Braum had only 10 mana, so the wall stopped halfway. Fire crossed its upper edge and struck Bud. Tavra's remaining reserve fell to 100 as the sword repaired the burn. We had no mana bank, no healer, and no safe path through the flames. Both weapons carried my mark. Both marks grew from Avaroon. The roots beneath the arena touched each other. I pressed my palm to Bastion and opened the second control. Tavra did the same with Bud. A living line formed between the grips. The system explained the consequence in one sentence. Objects grown from the same root could share an owner's mana if every owner agreed. It was not a new power. It was the same life, refusing to remain separate. My 38 mana, Braum's 10, and Tavra's 100 became one reserve of 148. Jorvek attacked again. Bastion took 60 units from the shared reserve. Burned oak fell away. Black bark grew in its place. Its defense passed 240. Its roots lifted the wall and carried it 3 steps forward. The stadium shook with the crowd's reaction. Bud took the remaining 88. Its charred ridge became a black wooden edge. 7 leaves on the guard folded into a hard green ring. Attack rose past 100. Durability reached 190. The crystal declared rank B. Bastion absorbed mana stored from earlier impacts and crossed the same threshold. Defense 360. Durability 700. Rank B. At rank B, the cost changed. The 2 items consumed 410 breaths from their stored stress, far more than the mana left in our bodies. Scylla stood in the first row with both hands over her ears. 240 remain, she shouted. Jorvek's white fire struck the black bark and divided around it. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. Tavra walked behind the moving wall. Jorvek's teammates attacked from both sides, but Bastion opened smaller panels to meet them. Every panel knew where another stood. The shield was no longer one wall. It was a formation. Jorvek drove his spear through a gap. Bud met it. The silver spear had attack 78. Bud had passed 100. Wood cut metal. The flame core split. White fire shot backward and burned burned the Academy banner above Jorvik. The cloth dropped over his head. He stumbled across the boundary, wrapped in his own team's colors. The match crystal declared Braska the winner. 6,000 spectators stood. 40,000 distant viewers heard the result. The team that had begun at number 32 now held number 2 and a place in the final. Jorvik pulled the burned banner from his face. His spear lay in 2 pieces at Tavra's feet. He looked toward Mortis. Mortis had already turned to leave. Kezra stepped onto the official's platform carrying a red crystal box. "Not yet," she said. The public projection enlarged the box. Inside it, stolen mana moved beneath Mortis's personal seal. The registration device had diverted 180 units from Tavra and Brom. The blocked mana banks carried the same mark. Kezra placed the records against the main crystal. It spoke the transfers aloud, with times and amounts. The stadium changed from celebration to anger. Praxin ordered the gates closed. Mortis turned back toward the arena. His face looked older than it had that morning. "The living weapons will destroy the contract," he said. 41 Academy workers depend on it. 300 city smiths depend on the next order. Sindral will close every workshop if a student proves oak can replace steel. "So you drained students before a public fight," Praxin said. "I protected this institution." Jorvik walked to the platform and placed his broken flame core beside Kesra's evidence. "He promised my family the contract," he said. "The message carries his seal." Mortis stared at him. "Your family asked me to protect it. They did not ask you to make me lose in front of 40,000 people." His motive for honesty was not noble, but the timing was excellent. Praxin removed the red robe from Mortis's shoulders. The 6 gold tools vanished from the public board one at a time. His title, workshop access, and examiner rank followed. The same students who had laughed when he failed me now watched his own name fall below mine. Mortis was escorted across the arena in a plain gray shirt. Nobody threw anything. Nobody needed to. Every projection crystal followed him to the gate. Braska received 400 gold for reaching the final. The team ranking board displayed us at number 2. My craft position rose to number 2 as well. Orders passed 2,000, with offered deposits totaling more than 600 gold. I did not celebrate. Avarun had 240 breaths. Scylla reached me at the center of the arena. Her hands were shaking. "It moved," she said. The trunk moved under the stadium. 30 armored guards entered through the west gate. They wore the black tree seal of Sindral. A tall man followed them. His coat was white, his gloves were red, and an A-rank flame blade hung at his side. The public board identified him before he spoke. Zorik, Capital Grandmaster, First Inspector of Sindral. He carried a green pendant against his throat. Every leaf on bud and bastion turned toward it. Scylla gripped my arm hard enough to hurt. "That is not a pendant," she whispered. "That is Avarun's heart." Zorik raised a capital confiscation order for all 46,000 witnesses to see. "The tournament is suspended," he said. "The carpenter and every living weapon are now property of Sindral." The stadium did not become quiet. 6,000 people shouted questions while the crystals carried them across Arkina. Students yelled that Sindral had arrived only after Braska reached the final. Someone began chanting my name. Zorik waited without moving. He was used to rooms becoming silent for him. This room refused. Praxin descended from the official's platform. "You have no authority to seize registered student equipment during an academy event. Sindral has authority over corrupted craft in every Imperial institution," Zorik replied. "Those objects draw life from a sealed world root. They have consumed 760 units. Another evolution may wake it." That stopped the crowd. He knew the exact number. Scylla stepped beside me. "Because he is holding the heart that counts every breath." The nearest recording crystal caught her words. Zorik touched the green pendant. "This is a Sindral stabilizer. It is alive," she said. "It is calling to every root under us." And the pendant pulsed once. Bud bent toward it in Tavra's hand. Bastion's roots scraped across the arena stones. Zorik's guards tightened their circle. Kesra climbed onto the test platform and opened the Imperial craft code. She had carried 3 volumes into the stadium because she treated books the way Brom treated food. She always brought more than seemed physically possible. "Sindral can quarantine an unstable object," she said. "It cannot claim ownership until an independent challenge is completed." "No qualified challenger is present," Zorik said. "You are the first inspector. You qualify." Zorik looked at Kesra's family seal, then at the public crystals. Refusing would tell every viewer that he feared the test. "State the challenge," he said. Kezra read from the oldest page. A disputed craft may enter one official trial under its creator. If it reaches a new verified rank without loss of control, the creator receives independent ownership and a master license. If it fails, the object enters Syndral quarantine. I understood why she had chosen that law. Bud and Bastion were rank B. Reaching rank A during the final would remove Zorik's claim in front of every witness. It would also spend Averon's final 240 breaths. Zorik understood too. Accepted, he said. The final will continue under capital safety rules. Syndral will equip the opposing team. The Academy's first-ranked crown team entered from the north gate. Their captain carried a new flame lance. The appraisal crystal declared attack 340, rank A. Their defender wore rank A iron armor with defense 300. Their mage received a Syndral fire focus capable of releasing 400 units in one attack. Zorik raised one hand. Living weapons claimed to replace Imperial steel. They will be tested against Imperial steel. The crown students looked uncomfortable but accepted the equipment. They believed Averon was a sealed monster, and my weapons threatened the academy. Their reasons were better than Jorvek's. Their fire would burn the same. We returned to the workshop to prepare. Kezra found 6 clean mana cores through her family contacts. Each restored 50 units to a consenting owner. The price was 50 gold per core. I spent 300 gold. That reduced my money from 631 gold and 25 silver to 331 gold and 25 silver. It was the most expensive meal of our lives, so Brahm served a real meal first. He made apple pancakes in a wide iron pan. The edges became brown and crisp in butter. The centers stayed soft. He covered them with warm apples, cinnamon, honey, and thick cream. He added fried potatoes and strips of smoked meat because he did not trust sweet food to protect fighters. Tavra ate 2 cores after the pancakes. They tasted like cold metal and made blue light move under her skin. Brahm ate 2 more. I kept the final 2 in my belt for the match. Our combined reserve rose to 260. The living weapons still needed Avaron's force to turn mana into growth. We could restore our bodies. We could not restore the tree. Scylla stood with me beside the charcoal numbers. If you use all 240 breaths, it wakes, she said. Yes. Ulmor does not know whether it will speak before it attacks. Yes. Zorik may be telling the truth about the danger. He is telling the truth about the danger and lying about the ownership. She looked at Bud. Then why continue? Sure, because stopping gives the heart back to the people who drain 10 million breaths. They will wake Averon later, behind closed doors, after making 10,000 more weapons. If it wakes today, 80,000 witnesses will see why. That is a terrible plan. I died under a cabinet. My standards are realistic. She tried to smile. It did not last. When everyone called you useless, I heard you thank a piece of dead pine, she said. That was when I saw you, not the class, not the weapon, you. I had planned the final in numbers. 260 mana, 240 breaths, 3 opponents, 6 release controls. I had no useful number for the way her words felt. Stay near the exit, I said. That is your answer? My better answers require surviving the final. Scylla took my face between her hands and kissed my forehead. Then survive quickly, she said. When we returned, the entire city seemed to be watching. 6,000 people filled the stadium. Another 12,000 stood in the streets around it. Public crystals reported more than 80,000 distant viewers. The Academy ranking board had never carried so many active connections. Braska entered from the south gate. 5 days earlier, Braska had been number 32. I had owned 4 copper coins and a broken piece of pine. Now Bud rested in Tavra's hands at rank B. Bastion moved beside Brahm on its own roots. I carried 2 mana cores, a hammer, 6 oak pegs, and the responsibility for everything under our feet. The crown team entered behind a wall of white fire. Zorik sat on the official's platform with Averon's heart against his throat. The bell rang. 400 units of fire crossed the arena. Bastion opened before Brahm gave the order. Black bark spread into a curved wall. The first flame wave removed 180 durability. Leaves became ash. Heat passed through the gaps and burned my coat. Brahm pressed the growth control. Bastion took 80 mana from him and 20 from our shared reserve. It also took 100 breaths from Averon. The arena floor broke in a circle around us. Roots thicker than my body rose from below. They lifted the wall and built around it. Oak towers unfolded on both sides. Branches locked above us into a roof. Narrow openings appeared for Tavra's attacks. What had begun as a shield smaller than Brahm Brom's chest became a moving fortress 12 yards wide. The appraisal crystal struggled for 3 seconds before speaking. Defense 850, durability 1500, rank A, new form identified as Citadel. The reaction struck like a physical wave. 80,000 viewers heard the rank. 6,000 people saw a wooden fortress stand inside the arena. The betting board went blank because every clerk had stopped writing. Braska's shield had reached rank A. Avaroon had 140 breaths left. The crowned captain attacked the left tower with his flame lance. Rank A metal entered the black bark by 1 foot and stopped. Citadel closed around the shaft. The captain released the weapon and jumped back before the roots caught his arms. Tavra moved through an opening in the right wall, but met the rank A armor of the defender. The first strike left no mark. The second removed 6 durability from the iron and 30 from Bud. The crown mage filled the gap with fire. Tavra crossed her arms around the blade. The dry bark burned away. The dark center line became red. Bud remembered being broken on stone, bent in an iron back hide, frozen by ice, and burned by Jorvek's spear. All those injuries had remained in its grain. It asked for the final 140 breaths. I felt the request through my mark. If I refused, Bud remained rank B. Tavra stood between an A-rank defender and a fire spell. If I accepted, Avaron woke. Zorik watched from above. His pendant shone brighter. He had built the choice. He expected fear to make it for me. I opened the mark. Bud consumed Tavra's remaining mana, my first core, and the last 140 breaths. The green leaves on its guard turned gold. The red center line spread to the edge. The blade did not become larger. It became simpler. Every unnecessary ridge fell away. The pine surface closed until it looked like one perfect piece of dark wood. Attack 320, durability 400, rank A. The crystal's announcement disappeared beneath the roar. My first sword had once held attack 3 and durability 5. Jorvek had broken it against a table. 5 days later, it stood above Imperial steel. Tavra cut once. The rank A iron armor opened from shoulder to waist. Bud stopped 1 inch before the student beneath it. The living edge chose not to continue. The defender dropped his weapon and stepped outside the boundary. The crown mage released another fire wave. Citadel opened its roof, caught the spell between 2 curved panels, and turned the heat upward. White fire climbed into the sky instead of crossing the seats. The captain pulled his lance from the left tower and charged Tavra. Brom moved 1 root. The arena stone rose under the captain's boot. He fell forward. Tavra placed Bud against the lance. Rank Aa wood cut through rank as a metal at the core socket. The broken lance spun into Citadel. The fortress caught it and closed the shaft inside a wooden box. The captain landed in the same box a moment later. Only his head remained outside. He looked like an angry flower in a very expensive pot. The audience laughed so loudly that the projection crystals shook. The crown mage tried to fly over Citadel. Its towers bent inward and formed a cage above him. He struck the boundary net with his own wind spell and dropped outside the arena. Crown team eliminated. Braska victorious. For 1 heartbeat I heard nothing. Then 6,000 people stood. The public ranking board removed Braska from number 2 and placed it at number 1. My craft rank followed. Tavra raised Bud. Brom climbed onto Citadel's lowest tower and waved both arms. Kezra threw her notes into the air by accident, then tried to catch them while everyone around her jumped. Scylla did not celebrate. She was looking at the floor. Zorik rose from his seat. "The trial is invalid," he said. His voice crossed the stadium through a capital seal. The cheering turned into angry noise. Kezra reached the appraisal platform first. Both objects reached rank A. Neither lost control. The ownership challenge is complete. Praxim placed the academy seal beside hers. Relis receives an independent master license. Braska wins the tournament. The prize board released 3,000 gold into my registered account. After the cores, my total became 3,331 gold and 25 silver. Kezra's family offered a standing research contract worth 300 gold each week. More than 5,000 purchase requests filled the merchant board before it stopped accepting new entries. Power, money, and status had reached numbers nobody in the hall could deny. Zorik denied them anyway. Sindrel's hard authority stands above academy law, he said. He tore the green pendant from his neck and held it toward Bud. Living weapon, return to your source. The heart released a green pulse. Bud flew from Tavra's hand. It crossed the arena and landed in Zorik's palm. The stadium became silent. He smiled for the first time. You see, the objects belonged to Sindral. He swung Bud at the appraisal table. The Ranka blade became soft. It bent around the table without leaving a mark. Its golden leaves folded over Zorek's fingers. Thin roots tied his glove to the grip. The system told me the final consequence of living craft. A weapon that learned from an owner could choose that owner. A stolen heart could call its body, but it could not command its will. Bud had chosen Tavra. Zorek pulled at the roots. The sword bent farther and struck him on the back of the head with its flat side. The first laugh came from Braum. The other 80,000 followed. Zorek's face turned red. He drew his A-rank flame blade with his free hand and cut at Bud. Citadel crossed the arena. One tower opened beneath him. Roots wrapped his boots, knees, waist, and arms. A wooden seat formed behind his legs. Another root pressed gently against his shoulders. The capital grandmaster sat down because the fortress gave him no other choice. The seat grew a high back and 2 broad arms. After 5 days, my greatest enemy had been captured by a chair. I respected the symmetry. Zorek's 30 guards raised their weapons. The stadium audience did not run. Every student with a recording crystal aimed it at the green heart in his hand. Kesra reached him with her measuring chains. She touched one silver end to the pendant. The main crystal announced living world root material. Estimated age greater than 12,000 years. Sindral extraction seals detected. Sila repeated the result in a voice that carried across the arena. He is holding Evarun's stolen heart. Ulmor rose through the broken floor beside her. Thousands of people screamed when they saw his bark-covered body. He ignored them and faced the projection crystal. Sindral stole that heart 20 years ago, he said. It drained more than 10 million breaths to power Imperial weapons. Zorek stopped struggling. Without Sindral, the Empire loses half its defenses, he said. Cities fall, workers starve. You think this is theft because you have never counted the lives that metal protects. His motive was real. So was the heart in his hand. Then you should have asked the owner before cutting it out, I said. The public crystals carried the sentence into every district of Arcany. One guard lowered his weapon, then another did the same. They had come to seize a dangerous artifact. They had not come to fight an academy, a tournament crowd, and the ancient being beneath all of them. The victory board confirmed Braska at number 1. Praxon confirmed my license again. Kesra locked the heart inside her measuring chains while Citadel held Zorek in the chair. Every enemy had been answered in public. Jorvek lost before the students he wanted to impress. Mortis lost his title before the workers he claimed to protect. Zorek sat bound before more than 80,000 witnesses while his own seals proved the theft. Then my charcoal count reached 0. The stadium floor split from one gate to the other. Citadel released Zork and pulled all of us toward the outer wall. Roots rose beneath the seats, lifting people without crushing them. The arena opened like a wooden door. Far below us, something larger than the academy moved. Stone fell from a trunk wide enough to support the entire stadium. Green light entered cracks that had been dark for centuries. One enormous eye opened in the bark. Every living weapon lowered itself. Sila fell to her knees. The voice of Avaran entered the roots, the walls, and every wooden object in Arcana. It spoke one word first. Thief. The eye fixed on my maker's mark. Zorek began to laugh from inside his broken wooden chair. Then Avarun saw the heart bound in Kesra's chains. The entire city shook. Return my heart before the next moon, the World Tree said, or I will take back every breath your empire stole.